Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I'm here with Noma Moses from Healthy Black Woman. How you doing today, Noma?
I'm doing great, boys. How are you?
I'm doing really well, and you sent me this really great story for our segment today. Our segment, by the way, in case people don't know, we call it Dr. Boyce and Noma, no, Noma Langa, sorry, and we kind of like to talk about stuff that relates to just life and family and stuff, and because I think you have such good information, good advice, and one of the stories you sent me today was about Pat and Gina Neely, who they had a show on that I only saw a couple times, but I did. They looked so happy together. It was called Down Home with the Neelys, and these two were big on the Food Network. They've made a ton of money. They became famous from their food, and now they're filing for divorce. Now it looks like TMZ is kind of following up and doing what they do, which is kind of going in like the little vultures and pecking at the dead body, and the dead body being their marriage. And what they found was actually interesting. They claim that sources are saying that the Neelys that their marriage has been dead for 5 years at least, and that they started the show with pretty much a dead marriage, dead on arrival. They just rode the fame train, and they really couldn't stand each other. I mean, in fact, literally, the headline is "We hated each other the entire show." You sent this to me, so what does this make you think about? I mean, wait, what chord did this strike with you?
The joke that I made before we went live was this is the singles crowd or the forever not married crowd's fantasy. That married people are married, yes, and they pretend to be happy, but actually they're miserable in there because they're stuck in their marriages. They pretend to be happy, and actually they're not. So that was funny, and I know for a fact that's not true, but Um, it's interesting that that's how we would generalize them. I don't believe that they were entirely miserable. It's been my experience that people will, depending on what they think, will take bits and pieces and magnify them. So I think maybe there was a lot of contention. There probably was a lot of conflict maybe in their relationship. But what I've also observed now, with all these reality shows is, fame and money and reality TV will magnify whatever's going on in your life.
Hmm, interesting. So do you think that TMZ is maybe being a little dramatic here, or do you think that
Or,
that's really interesting? Well, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they were telling the truth. But then again, though, it's kind of difficult for them to really verify this. Let me look at the exact words here. It looks like they're claiming that they got this information from a source. We're told. So you're right. I mean, I think it's very difficult for any outsider, to truly understand the complexities of a relationship, because a relationship is one of those few things that really only happens between you and the other person. And when that other person's dead, half of the memory of what happened is gone, right? Because the two of you, if you compare, say, the number of hours that two married people spend together, and you compare that to, say, the amount of time that either one of them has spent talking about their relationship with anybody else, it's the ratio is probably 1 to 100, right?
right.
So it does seem that maybe someone is taking one conversation or one piece of information, maybe two or three, and magnifying it. But they are filing for divorce. I mean, they are calling it quits, and and I think that's interesting. So what do you think this says? In terms of why some marriages last and some marriages don't. I mean, you've had a marriage for almost 10 years now. Is that right?
That's correct.
What would you say is kind of the defining factor? I mean, a lot of people say, when they get married, they say, "Gosh, I hope I get along with this person and we never get a divorce." Is it really as simple as luck of the draw, or do you think there's something else that comes into play?
Well, first of all, I want to slightly disagree with just what you just said. That they hope that they get along with the person and they hope that it it works. The idea is you're supposed to get in and you're supposed to understand that you're not supposed to get out unless you die. So if you go in with "I hope it works and I hope I get along," then you're already failing, in my opinion. But to the Neelys, I would say that I said it already that I think that fame, money, and it seems reality shows play a big part too. They really do magnify whatever is going on, and not necessarily for the good. In other words, if they were having conflict, if you add more money to it, it's going to increase the conflict. And then if you put them in a bubble, what do you call it? A fishbowl where everybody sees and everybody's looking and everybody has an opinion and so forth. Again, that's never good. So if it was already troubled and there was already conflict and there was a crack in the foundation, this was inevitable, in my opinion. However, I don't believe that a solid marriage with a solid foundation would fall apart just because they got a show or because they got more money.
So what you're saying is that um, you don't think the marriage was solid from the beginning. That's why that the show kind of accelerated what was already there. Okay, and I think that's that's interesting. I mean, I guess you kind of got the two issues, right? You've got the issue with the Neelys, which I don't want to necessarily pour onto the speculation about what happened between these two. All we know for sure is that they have a great show and they're getting a divorce. It happens to a lot of people, but when you kind of extrapolate that, you kind of say, okay, is there anything we can learn from this? It does seem to me that that part of what you're saying is that when you get married, you can't have a mindset that says, I hope this works out. You have to sort of say, okay, I'm in it, I'm here, I have to work with what I've got. And it almost seems like that's the difference, right? Because you've got some situations, it seems, again, just talking here, that where people say, well, I thought it was going to be like this, and it turned out to be like that, so that's why I had to call it quits. And then it seems that those who are able to survive in a long marriage are the ones who say, I thought I was going to get this, I ended up getting that, and so I had to work with that. Um, so
Right.
so at what point do you think that that most rational people would sort of be able to say that, okay, that is so much worse than this. What I got is so much different from what I expected that I just can't be here. I just can't do this. What do you think is where do you draw that line? I mean, you see what I mean? Because a lot of people are going to say,
Right.
well, they're going to say, oh, you're being idealistic. I had no idea that she was going to be this way, or I didn't know that he was going to do this to me, and that's why I got divorced. So you don't understand. I mean, you see what I mean?
I do see what you mean, and in the interest of full disclosure, I will say I believe myself to be an extremist in terms of marriage. I am extremely for marriage, and I believe that you should do everything, uncover every rock, do everything that you possibly can to preserve it. That's what I believe. Um, and I also believe that too many people give up too soon. I think, we've had enough conversations surrounding relationships and marriage and so forth to know that that's my stance. I believe that more than half of the people that call it quits didn't explore all their options. Having said that, I will say that if you get one thing or the other, that's already a given. This is forever. You can't expect a 25-year-old, assuming that's how old your partner was when you married them, to be the same at 35, at 45, at 55. It's a given that you're going to get something different, if not 5 years down the line, if not 6 months down the line. That's why, even though not everybody does those traditional vows, but they usually say something like rich or poor, thick or thin, which already implies that there's extremes on either end, and to expect that things could be on either end of the spectrum.
Hmm.
Now, again, there are exceptions, of course. If somebody's beating you to a pulp, nobody's saying that you should stay with those kind of. But that's an extreme too, And again, that also does not necessarily mean that you should immediately end your relationship. It means that you should seek solutions. But most people jump to the extreme solution of just ending it. Same thing with cheating. All those. Those are all things that can have resolution. And I know that there'll be people who get angry about me saying that, but that's the truth. Every problem that exists has a resolution, and the resolution of divorce is right at the end, but some people jump to that.
Well, that's an interesting point. I think because my argument would be this. I dropped my pen. That's why I'm looking down. My argument is that and maybe you can agree with this. If you're not prepared to be an extremist when it comes to saving and protecting your marriage, then maybe you shouldn't do it.
Right.
I mean, when you see these marriages that last a year, 2 years, it's hard from my perspective to even understand how you could have thought that was a good idea, other than sort of reacting to to some sort of irrational, emotional charge that you had. And one of the things that one of my friends told me, that who's she's been married I think about 15 years now, and her marriage has had a lot of ups and downs, is she said, when I got married at 25, I did not know how long forever really was. She thought that, I think in her young mind, she thought forever was a few years, and then I'll have a new boyfriend and a new set of experiences. Saying, no, that's your boyfriend for life. He's gonna be your old boyfriend in a few years. And and so it almost seems that I mean, tell me if you agree with me. It almost seems that maybe people don't understand the seriousness of it. That also maybe we live in a society where you're encouraged to give up too quickly. Even if you remember that open letter I wrote to Janae Rice, Ray Rice's wife, where I didn't say, Janae, I think you should, keep this marriage going. I didn't say that at all. I did say to her though that, okay, I applaud your courage in keeping your family together. I think that decision is just as valid as the other decision to just dump him, girl, just go. But at the same time, I said you have to fix this. Right, you need counseling. He needs counseling. You shouldn't be hitting each other. You shouldn't be spitting on him. You shouldn't be punching you out. Of course, we know that. And I remember the response, the backlash that I got from people, mostly feminists. Because I had a few feminists that wrote about this. And I'm not against feminism. I'm against extreme feminism, but not feminism itself. And they were saying that was just unacceptable to even respect her decision to stay with her husband. That was just, you're being a woman hater and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not hating anybody, but I love the idea of keeping a family together and fighting through the hurdles that you run into. And I don't think necessarily one drunken night where they were slugging at each other is enough for them to necessarily automatically say it should be over. Um,
Right.
I just said a lot. I didn't even ask you a question, but I'm sure you have something to say on that.
I do.
Please.
Just talking about that one drunken night or whatever. It's obviously a sign that something's wrong. It's a huge sign. It's a big alarm bell. It's screaming. And I want to believe there were other signs, but that's a big one. And then it happened in public, so that made it even bigger. So that's just a sign that there's a problem. But there are people who can go through years and years of marriage and they have no conflict, no fights, no nothing, and there's still something very, very wrong in that they're unhappy. They're not getting much out of it. There's no passion. There's nothing really there, and they're just going through the motions. So there's something wrong with that, and there's something wrong with the Janae Rice thing as well. It just so happens that with the Janae Rice story, we all saw it and we all had a reaction. And again, it's just like with reality TV. Everybody has an opinion, and that magnifies everything. Having said that, though, again, a problem doesn't mean the end. A problem means find solutions. And I want to believe that her solution wasn't just trying to forget it happened and then life as usual, or go back to everything normal. I want to believe that they sought some kind of intervention where, in my opinion, they need three things. He needs his own individual counseling or some kind of intervention. She needs it, and then they collectively need it together. Actually, even a fourth thing would be a whole family, because they're building a family. But to that, you're not going to get me to disagree with that. I believe in keeping families together. I wholeheartedly believe it. And again, I keep saying it over and over. In the interest of full disclosure, I grew up in a family where my mom and dad were together, and that's gone on for generations. So that's something that I believe is a good thing. I also want to say that I think it's a good thing collectively for the Black community to appreciate that, because I don't believe you can get very far if every generation is starting over and keep starting over and keep starting over. How will you ever build anything? How will you build anything if you keep breaking up and starting over with every generation? How will you do anything for your children, your grandchildren? How will you build a legacy? It just won't happen. It just won't happen. You have to build families to build communities, societies. And the Black community, as you and I both know, is right now, in my opinion, in a state of emergency. Even if it doesn't seem that way, it's in a state of emergency. If you're having so many horrible things happen and they just keep happening, that's a state of emergency.
Hmm. Well, I can't disagree with you, and That's pretty much what our whole new paradigm concept is all about: wealth, education, family, and community, and they're all connected. Education and wealth and family and community. I mean, you really can't build a community without a family structure, right?
Right.
And we don't have that right now. Which if you cannot disconnect that to what our community as a collective is going through, and so I have to agree with you entirely. I think that if you look at really at anything that people do in life where they are able to achieve something that they want, achieve some sort of goal, there is kind of a stick-to-itiveness to it, and a stubbornness that has to apply. And the loftier the objective, the more stubborn you have to be. For example, if I'm trying to get through a 6-month academic program, it takes a little bit of stick-to-itiveness, but not that much. But if I'm trying to become a neurosurgeon, that's going to require me to pretty much be almost maniacally insane about getting to my goal. And I would argue that staying married for 30, 40, 50, 60 years is even more difficult than becoming a surgeon. At least, in terms of the amount of time that you have to invest. So it almost seems to me that, to make a marriage last that long, you have to be at least as insanely committed to what you're trying to do as someone would be to trying to get through medical school. And if you don't have that sort of determination, where you work around your problems, you don't run away from them. You're committed to what you're trying to do. If you don't have that kind of determination, once again, I go back to the simple idea: save everybody's time. Don't waste everybody's time and have everybody coming to your wedding, bringing you gifts, spending money. All these people acknowledging a relationship that you're not completely devoted to, destroying yourself and your partner emotionally and financially. Don't do it. Right? Because it seems that so many people I see, especially younger people, they're more caught up in the wedding day than they are in the actual fundamentals of being married and staying that way. And I just think that that's silly. Get some counseling, and especially if you didn't get a chance to watch someone fight through 20, 30 years of marriage. If you didn't see that in your house, it's almost like that can almost be like watching a foreign country. When I think about seeing my parents married for 40 years, just so you know, that this month is their 40th wedding anniversary. Congrats to them if they're watching. I grew up with my parents, literally. I saw them go through at least 50 things that would have easily led to divorce in 2014.
Right.
Most people I know wouldn't have made it through those things, but because they were determined, because they treated each other almost like siblings, like we don't have a choice, we're here together, we got to deal with this. They just stayed together, and you mentioned this, and I'll let you get this last point before we go. You mentioned that there is a correlation there, because we were talking about how with our siblings we can deal with that. We understand what it means to love somebody and hate them at the same time, but to just say, okay, but we're together, and I need you, and you're part of me, etc. But we can't do that with spouses. And you said something after that was really interesting. What was your take on that?
I said that it's so funny that sometimes your spouse can. We're having a slight echo there. I was saying that one of the things with your siblings is you can be with your siblings, and we even say it. I hate my sister. I hate my brother, especially when they're very little, right? But you understand that that's just a fleeting emotion, reacting to one specific event, and again, it flees, and then you're back to loving them, back to knowing that they're your brother or your sister forever. And it seems that we're able to understand that intellectually with siblings, but when it comes to spouses, people don't seem to understand that when you go in, you're tied to that person forever. And even if they make you mad, drive you crazy, or whatever, or if you feel like you hate them at some point, it's supposed to be a fleeting emotion, and it goes away, and you go back to loving them. And it's a weird thing to me.
Well, I think you have some good advice, and I think people should pay attention to you. And I know I do. I know I do. And I want to say thank you for sharing once again. And it was great talking to you again, Noma.
It was great talking to you, boys.
All right, and everybody, thank you for watching. And this is No mhlauli-moses. She's the owner and founder of HealthyBlackWoman.com, and you should go check her out and go read some of her articles. She always has great advice like this. Now, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I'm going to take off. So until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.